Hey everybody. Hey, how you doing?
What's up?
Hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome to Advisory. We are in the middle of the spring semester, which means that a lot of exams are coming up of all different types. And so I thought today would be a good idea to talk about some test taking strategies as we prepare to take all sorts of exams over the next couple of months. And while every test is different, we're going to be specifically focusing on standardized testing and strategies for that, because that is what a lot of our tests are. They're standardized tests. And a standardized test is just a test that is meant to produce standardized answers. It's usually multiple choice. Sometimes it's got a writing portion, and it's meant to measure student performance across a large population and in some cases determine graduation readiness. Examples of standardized tests are things like the STAR tests that we'll be taking, or the EOCs, ACPs, which are basically like mini STAR tests, the ACT and SAT, which are preparation exams for college. And depending on your score on those, you can get scholarship, or different colleges will accept you more readily. And if you're in an AP class, you'll be taking an AP exam for that specific course. But all of these are examples of standardized tests, tests that are given to a large group of people. They're not always the most interesting. They're often quite boring, but they don't have to be scary or difficult if you prepare and if you know what strategies to use. Regardless of content, there are general strategies that can help you prepare and perform on these tests. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. First, we'll go over how to prepare, and then we will go over how to perform. And there's several points that I'm going to make, and so you may want to take notes as I suggested in the last slide, either digitally or on paper, so that you can be prepared for the discussion and really just take notes for you, okay? Write down things that stand out or maybe something that you want to remember as you prepare for your exams this semester. So let's start with how to prepare. First of all, you want to know the test, the style, and the content. What type of test is it going to be? Is it going to be a lot of multiple choice? Is it going to be a lot of writing? And what is the content of it? What is it going to be over? When we take ACPs, they're over just one semester's worth of content. But when we take end of course exams or STAR exams, that covers the entire year. And so we need to know what the scope of the content is going to be and what's going to be on it. Should be pretty self explanatory, but paying attention in class and keeping up with all of your assignments go a long way in preparing for tests, because your teachers create the assignments throughout the year to prepare you and help you process the information that you will eventually need to use on an exam in the future. And so paying attention, going to class on time, and keeping up with assignments is a huge way to help you out on exam day to feel a lot less anxious. As you're keeping up with assignments and paying attention in class, if you don't understand a concept, don't sit there and suffer in silence. Go to tutoring or ask your teacher when they can give you extra help with a specific idea of what you need help with. And it's really important to go to tutoring with an idea of what you need help with so that you don't just go to your teacher and say,
Help me.
Help me, I don't know what is going on.
because your teacher is ultimately going to ask, with what? What do you need help with specifically? And so go to tutoring with a specific idea of what you might need help with. Number 4 is to study up until the night before. All right. When you know an exam is coming up, when you know a major unit test is coming up or a standardized test, start studying and practicing for those tests way before the test is actually here. Study all the way up to the night before the test, but then go to sleep and get some good rest and eat a good breakfast the next day. Don't try to cram all of your studying into the night before or the morning of. You definitely don't want to do that. It's too stressful and it's not a good way to absorb information. Study a little bit every day over a long period of time, and you'll be much better prepared. You got to take care of your body. All right. I harp on this a lot, but you have to get good sleep, good food, and lots of water to help your brain, not only as you prepare for the test, but also the day of the test itself. You need to make sure that you're well rested, well fed, and well hydrated for your brain to work at its peak optimal performance level. The first 5 here are all things to do before the day of the test, but the day of the exam, there's also certain things that you can do to set yourself up for success. First of all, grab a protein heavy breakfast. You definitely want to eat something for breakfast in the morning. Don't go to a test empty stomached, but you also want to make sure that that something has plenty of protein in it. A lot of the times, folks will eat stuff like this for breakfast because it's cheap and it's quick and it's easy. Things like muffins or honey buns or donuts.
Ooh, I love a good honey bun.
But there are a lot of sugar and a lot of carbs, and our bodies have a tendency to run through the energy that carbs and sugar gives us pretty quickly, and we're more likely to crash in the middle of the test as far as our energy is concerned if we consume just these things the day of our exam. So try your best to stay away from things like this and instead grab a protein bar or even something as simple as a fried egg before you step out of the door in the morning. That can get your body going. It can help your brain out tremendously to have some protein to process as you go throughout your day, especially on stressful days like exam days. After you grab your breakfast, you want to head to school and get to the test as early as you can. Getting there maybe 10, 15 minutes early can be really helpful in calming your nerves and getting settled into the testing location. It'll help you feel less rushed and it'll help your brain get ready for the task at hand. And then finally, the day of or the morning of, try to avoid negative self-talk, either with yourself or others, and replace it instead with positive affirmations. A lot of the times when we go into tests that we're nervous about, we will cope with that nervousness by saying, "Oh, did you study? Oh, I didn't even study."
Oh, I'm gonna bomb this test.
But that's not very helpful when it comes to actually taking the test and reducing stress. It might be helpful to you in the moment when you're making jokes about not having studied or anything like that. Instead, tell yourself that you have done the proper work to prepare for this test and that you are capable of doing well. And that'll help you go into the test with as much confidence as you can muster. Sometimes just the confidence alone can get you through certain parts of a test that you're not comfortable with. And if you bomb or if something bad happens, then it's just one test. And we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so after you've spent all the time that you need to prepare, it is now time to perform as you get to the testing room and get prepared to start the test. So here are my tips to optimize your performance the day of a test. Number one is stay alert. That's why we get good sleep. That's why we get good food in our systems so that we can stay alert. We can listen to instructions and read questions carefully. Number two is to use your time wisely. Some standardized tests like the AP exam or the SAT have timed sections to them. Some you can take as long as you need, like the STAR tests. Even if it's not a timed test, you want to use your time as efficiently as possible so that you don't run out of energy. Usually on standardized tests, there are at least one of two options. First of all is multiple choice. And I'm sure you've gone over lots of strategies when it comes to multiple choice, but I just wanted to give you a basic one of process of elimination to remember as you get into these tests. So here's my example of a multiple choice question. It's just a silly question. It's not anything serious, but I'll show you what I usually do whenever I take multiple choice tests. So say the question is this: what color is Mr. Hall's beard? And I'll get out of here so as not to spoil it. The options are bright purple, black, brown, or red. So if I were to just guess out of nowhere, if I were to just go eeny, meeny, miny, mo and choose one of these answers, I have a 25% chance of getting a correct answer. That's if I don't eliminate any at all and I just pick at random. I have 25% chance of getting that answer correct, which is not great. And so I want to try to up my chances of getting it correct. So I will eliminate obviously silly or incorrect answers that are just put there to distract me. So I know that Mr. Hall's beard is not bright purple, and I know it is not black, but it could be brown and it could be red. So by eliminating the ones I know are wrong, I now have upped my chances to 50-50 if I chose at random. And does anybody know the answer to this question? It is red. Yeah, I have a red beard. I don't know how it happened. My dad's a redhead. My mom is a brunette. And I don't know. I'm the best of both worlds. So at least use the process of elimination on your multiple choice questions to raise the percentage possibility that you will get the answer right. But what about essays and written portions? This, you need to dissect the prompt and properly plan before you just go right into it and start writing. All right, so we've all seen STAR writing prompts, something that looks like this. And it always starts with some sort of quote and some sort of other information, and then it gets down to the actual prompt. And so you need to understand what part of this information is useful and what part is not. So the quotation says, "Don't spend so much time chasing your future that you run over your present." And that's from Carlos Wallace, whoever that is. "Some people focus so much on the future that they do not enjoy the present. Others spend so much time living in the present that they do not prepare for the future. Carefully consider this statement." So write an essay stating your opinion on which is more important, preparing for the future or focusing on the present. And then it tells you to make sure you do all these things, which your teachers have probably been teaching you how to do the entire year. So if I'm in a test and I'm tired because I've already answered a bunch of multiple choice questions, I look at this and it just looks like a wall of words. So it's important to dissect the prompt into what is important information and maybe not so important information. So really, while it can be good for guidance and for us to help frame our thinking, the stuff that I have circled here in red is not the most important part of the prompt, right? They just try to get your brain going with stuff like this. And then down here, we have a checklist of things to remember as we're writing, but none of that is the actual prompt. The actual prompt is this part in the middle where it says, write an essay stating your opinion on which is more important, preparing for the future or focusing on the present. So with all this extra fluff, I really just need to hyper focus in on this part of the prompt. And again, that is just my basic way to break down a prompt, especially a STAR prompt. If your teachers have told you to do something different,
Please listen to them, not me.
but generally speaking, you want to make sure you know exactly which part of all of this is the writing prompt. Tip number 5 is to do the worst first. I think I've mentioned this in a previous video this year, but if you get to a test and you know that part of it is going to be more difficult for you than another part, my suggestion is to do the most difficult part first. When you first sit down for a test, you are the most activated, your brain is not tired yet, you have the most energy that you'll have for that test. And so I am of the opinion that you find the thing that you think might be the hardest for you and do that first. And with whatever energy you have left after doing the more difficult task, you can more easily use for the tasks that are not as difficult for you. It's when you have the most energy that you want to do the most difficult part. Tip number 6 during the test is to take short, meaningful brain breaks. Again, you want to make sure to watch your time, especially on timed exams. But if you need a moment to just kind of sit, maybe close your eyes, maybe put your head down, try not to fall asleep before you finish a test. But I think it's important for our brain to take a couple of breaks. Short, meaningful brain breaks can be very helpful in doing your best on a test as well. Number 7 is to do you. Don't worry about everybody else, all right? It's very easy for us to get into the habit of looking around to see like how far ahead someone is or how easily someone is finishing a test. Don't worry about how they're doing and don't worry about the speed with which they get done. You are responsible for getting the score on your test, all right? So you don't need to worry about anybody else and what they're doing or how they're doing. Just focus on yourself, focus on your plan, focus on your performance, and you should be fine. Last 2 tips. Number 8 is to double check your answers, but don't second guess. How many times have you been in a test where you go back and you change your answers only to find that your original answer was correct? You want to follow your gut, but you also want to double check that all of your answers are correct or as correct as you understand them to be. And then finally, when you're done with the test, release the stress. You did all that you could within your power to succeed. And so leave the test confident that you did your best. And depending on the test and depending on what kind of scores you get back, there's usually an opportunity to do better on the next exam. Tests are just one slice, one moment in time to check how you're doing on a given subject. But if you happen to do bad on a test, that doesn't mean that you are a bad student or that you have not learned anything. All we can do is our best, and all we can do is get better. So those are my strategies in preparing for exams. What I want you to do next is on the next slide, and I want you to reflect on what exams you know you have coming up. So on a sticky note or a Google Doc or whatever you've been taking notes on, you can write a list of all the tests you know you will be taking from now until the end of the year. This can be a STAR test, an AP exam, a final exam, or any other major test. If you're not sure which of your classes will have a test, ask your classmates or teacher, and they may know about whether or not you have a STAR test or an AP exam or anything like that. Below that list of all the tests that you know you're going to take, write down which of those tests you are most confident about and which you might be a little bit more nervous about. And then I want you to discuss with your class or maybe even continue your written reflection and think of those exams that you've identified that might be more difficult. Which of these tips that we went over in this video do you think might help the most? Choose a couple of these points that you want to make sure to follow and explain why that will be helpful to you. But that's all from me. Enjoy that reflection. I hope these tips make you feel more confident going into your exams over the next couple of months. Be good to yourself and others, and I will see you tomorrow.